Oh, another one that I really feel like I should tell you about is the City of David. So the City of David, it's in Jerusalem. It's like the oldest part of Jerusalem, like the inner section, and there's so much history there. And there's the part I want to tell you about is the caves. There was some important story with the caves and why they were formed. Something about transporting food or escaping the city under attack. I don't really remember. We were going to go through these like wet caves. And by wet caves, I mean that there was literally water at the bottom of the caves. On the day we were there, it was just past my knees at some point. And they told us it was going to be a little claustrophobic. And I wasn't super worried because even though I'm claustrophobic, I've never had a problem in a cave before. The cave was so cool. And it was tight. Like, we had to duck a lot of the time to like get through it. We had to have these little flashlights so there's no light in there. When we get out, and they sent us in one direction, and then we all stood there waiting for instructions of what was happening next. And then all of a sudden they had us going back where we came from and into another cave. This one was a dry cave. It was a lot longer than the first cave. And there were parts we had to duck down. That wasn't as much the issue as how tight it got at some point. At one point, I was holding my arms like this to try and make like my shoulders less wide, and I was still scraping my shoulders against the sides. There were lights in the second cave, but also people kept stopping. And we got stopped up, and the guys behind me were making jokes about claustrophobia, and I started to have a claustrophobia attack. My heart started beating faster, and my lungs started closing up, and I started crying, and eventually, when we were close to the exit, like I think I just had to climb up a few stairs. I couldn't breathe. I was crying, so I couldn't see. My heart was racing, and there was just this like opening in the cave, like just like this extension where it was like the size of a room, and I escaped from the line, and I just had a full-on panic attack until I calmed down. A few people checked on me. The only one I really remember specifically was Noah. This is like one of two significant memories of him on the trip, so I probably will not mention him again. But he stayed with me, kept telling me to breathe in and out, and I would have been fine without him, but it was nice to know that someone really cared. But the importance of this was I felt everyone's eyes on me as they walked by, and I had not been that vulnerable in such a long time. And you know me, I have walls. I know they're not as many as you, and I've been working on taking them down for the last few years, but only with the people I trust, and just with other people, I'm still so guarded. It seemed silly to put the walls back up after. So I didn't. I decided to remain vulnerable for the rest of the trip. I cried like 8 times in the next 5 days. I think you know how hard it is for me to comfort people. I'll like sit there and listen forever, and I'll tell them I'm sorry, and I'll like pat them on the back. A couple days later, this girl Masha was like having she was just so overwhelmed with emotions and being in the city and like really connecting to her Judaism. She and I just like walked together for like 10 minutes with my arm around her, like stroking her arm, like giving her comfort. That wasn't the only time I did something like that through the rest of the trip. And I think I'm going to try to be more vulnerable like that in my everyday life now. And so that was probably the most transformational part of the trip for me.